Want to know why? Ask how. Howard the Humongous. It all started with a series of tweets August 1st from someone or some source calling itself Harry the Patriot. Harry Callicut, allegedly a man from Texas who declares on his Twitter profile that 2020 is no longer about Republican versus Democrat. It's about freedom versus tyranny. In other words, Harry the Patriot believes that the Democratic Party wants to impose a tyranny on the United States. Harry the Patriot's tweet storm went like this. The vaccine that is coming? As many of you heard, Moderna is in stage 3 of their vaccine testing. If all goes well, it'll become federal law to get the vaccine. Here's something many of you don't know. Guess who the first CEO of Moderna was? A Cornell graduate by the name of Anthony Fauci, who was a roommate with none other than Bill Gates. Are you paying attention? It was at Cornell that Bill Gates designed the RFID, radio frequency identification, and patented it under US 2006-257852. Are you awake yet? Now let's really go down the rabbit hole. Moderna was a pharmaceutical company that started in Germany under the name IG Farben. IG Farben is infamous for its mass production of Zyklon B, the primary gas used to kill millions during the Holocaust. After Germany fell, IG Farben was dissolved and its assets sold off by a Nazi-turned-American by the name of, you guessed it, George Soros. Soros rebranded the company as Moderna. And who was the primary stockholder of Moderna until his death? Jeffrey Epstein. His role in Moderna is where he made his fortune and established his connections. Let that sink in. Wake up, people. You are being conditioned and controlled. That's the end of the tweet that raised a storm. A recent Twitterer in England took this conspiracy theory a step farther. He claimed that Bill Gates had admitted that the microchip vaccine will kill 700,000 people. Yes, you heard it right. The tweet from Harry the Patriot claims that Anthony Fauci and Bill Gates were roommates at Cornell and have concocted the coronavirus scare to get you and me injected with a vaccine that will contain tiny microchips. Those microchips will allow Gates to track all of your movements and mine and will make Fauci a fortune. Fauci, this conspiracy theory goes, was the first president of the drug company Moderna, a company that will produce the new vaccine. And Moderna is a company that, according to this fantasy, will make billions. Every single so-called fact in this highly influential tweet is false. Bill Gates and Anthony Fauci were never roommates. They couldn't have been. When Fauci entered college, Gates was a mere 4 years old and a whopping 2,714 miles away. Fauci did indeed go to Cornell, but Bill Gates went to Harvard. In fact, Gates entered Harvard 7 years after Fauci graduated from Cornell. Again, Gates and Fauci never even went to the same school, and they never went to college at the same time. Meanwhile, Fauci has never been head of Moderna. When Moderna was founded in 2010, Fauci had been head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases for 26 years, and he's still there today. What's more, the patent number in Harry the Patriot's tweets has nothing to do with RFID chips. It relates to nucleic acids and proteins from the SARS coronavirus. and it does not belong to Bill Gates. It belongs to an international team of 4 scientists from Italy, Austria, Germany, and the USA. What's more, George Soros is the very opposite of a Nazi. He's a Jewish refugee from Hungary whose parents used false papers to hide their identities and keep Soros alive through the Nazi occupation of 1945 to 1944 to 1945. Soros says, quote, "Instead of submitting to our fate, we resisted an evil force that was much stronger than we were, yet we prevailed. Not only did we survive, but we managed to help others." The Harry the Patriot tweet thread has been picked up and elaborated by others. Some of those elaborators say the microchips in the vaccine will be the mark of the beast that the Bible warns us against. Says the Bible's book of Revelation, "He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. If any man worship the beast and his image and receive his mark, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God." Christian writer F. Jocko Willem says the decision to accept or reject the mark will present a great world test. All people will face it. Those who take it will incur God's wrath. Those who refuse it will have his favor. In other words, being vaccinated will bring the wrath of the Lord upon your head. It's your holy obligation to refuse vaccination. What's the impact of conspiracy theories like this one? As of today, Friday, September 11th, 2020, we citizens of the United States have had more coronavirus deaths than any other nation on Earth. We've had more than England, France, Italy, Germany, and Spain combined. In fact, we've had more deaths than all of Africa and Asia combined. Yes, we've had more deaths here than 2 entire continents. To repeat, we've had more deaths than any other nation in the world. If we had followed South Korea's path and had initiated a crash program to develop and mass-produce tests in January, had done testing and isolation in February, we would have had a mere 2,064 deaths as of today. Instead, we've had 193,000. In a week or less, we will have had 200,000, which means the policies and lack of policies that have come from Donald Trump and his administration have killed 191,000 people to date, 191,000 Americans. Yes, Donald Trump has killed more Americans than World War I, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Iraq War, and the Afghanistan wars combined. To repeat, Trump's policies have killed 193,000 Americans, people who would not have died if we had modeled our coronavirus response on South Korea's pandemic policy. What's more, it's not too late. With a crash testing program and social isolation of those who are infected, we could still stop the virus in its tracks, especially with the additional help of the vaccine that may arrive by the end of the year. But our only COVID battle is not just with a virus. There's also a battle between the left and the right. It's a battle of perceptions. And Harry the Patriot is not the only conspiracy monger feeding the fantasies of the right. Other conspiracy theorists are promoting the belief that the COVID epidemic is simultaneously a hoax and the deadliest act of biological warfare in history. One source of these conspiracy theories is a slick, high-budget video we talked about a few weeks ago, a video from something that calls itself the COVID 911 insurgency. Its source of financing is completely unknown. According to the Associated Press, it was posted by Joe M., a well-known supporter of QAnon, a conspiracy theory we'll talk about more at length in a minute. But no journalist I've been able to find has tried to find out who produced, directed, and most important, funded this video. The video is the kind of high-cost production that could only have come from a wealthy extremist like Steve Bannon, or from the heavily bankrolled cyber attack apparatus of a state out to tear our society apart by setting us at each other's throats, a state like Russia. The COVID 911 insurgency video claims that the coronavirus pandemic has been concocted by what it calls the cruelest conspiracy in the history of the world. That conspiracy supposedly involves Democrats and liberals like Hillary Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, George Soros, Oprah Winfrey, and Tom Hanks. The goal is supposedly to make massive profits and to control the world. Then there's the real villain in the pile, the QAnon theory itself. QAnon says that the deep state plotters who invented the coronavirus performed sex with children in underground tunnels, sex these supposed deep state plotters indulge in while drinking blood and worshiping Satan. According to an investigation conducted by Facebook, QAnon now has thousands of groups and pages with millions of members and followers. One big question is whether these theories, these conspiracy theories, are homegrown or come from Russia's new form of cyber warfare. Warfare in which the weapons are irresistibly delicious lies. This form of war without bloodshed is what the Russians call active measures. The Russians are in fact into these conspiracy theories back in their homeland. In the first week of September 2020, the head of the Russian Communist Party said that so-called globalists support a covert mass chip implantation, which they may in time resort to under the pretext of a mandatory vaccination against coronavirus. Does that sound like the sort of conspiracy theory we Americans are being fed? Could the Russians indeed be our force feeders? When Roger Stone, a close confidant of Donald Trump, a man Trump tried to use to get at the Hillary Clinton letters leaked to WikiLeaks by the Russians, and a man who prides himself on political dirty tricks, says Bill Gates and his gang are using the virus to microchip people so we can tell whether you've been tested, could he be inadvertently spreading a Russian fantasy? Could both Roger Stone and Donald Trump be unwitting pawns in a Russian disinformation game? There's one solid reason that Donald Trump promotes QAnon ideas with his tweets. According to QAnon and conspiracy sources like COVID 911, only one man can save us from the dark plotters who invented the coronavirus. That man is Donald Trump. And it shouldn't be surprising that conspiracy theories that may have originated in Russia would support Trump, or that they would treat him as a savior. The Russian cyber war machinery has used Trump as a weapon to drag America into the pits and to weaken the Western alliance ever since 2015. One way or the other, these conspiratorial memes are making a difference in our lives, and a bad one. The BBC reports that a new YouGov poll of 1,640 people suggests that 26% of Americans believe that Bill Gates wants to use vaccines to implant microchips in people, with the figure rising to 44% among Republicans, nearly half of all Republicans. And the microchip conspiracy theory is spreading in other countries. Italy appears to have had its politics heavily manipulated by Russian active measures. So it's not surprising that one member of Italy's parliament proposed that the International Criminal Court indict Bill Gates for crimes against humanity. What's more, a popular Italian video claims that the entire coronavirus pandemic is what the narrator calls a sensational hoax. The video's narrator is Stefano Montanari, an Italian researcher with a degree in pharmacology. Note that Montanari has a degree in pharmacology, not a degree in epidemiology or infectious diseases. In other words, he's not exactly the kind of expert to rely on for information about the coronavirus. Nonetheless, Montanari says that the virus, quote, will continue to be totally made up until there is a vaccine that, quote, will bring money and corruption into the already full pockets of some, close quote. That video has had 700,000 views on Facebook. There are real-world consequences to these astonishing fantasies. They can kill. The conspiracy theories have bolstered an anti-vaccination movement in Italy. They have encouraged vast masses of Americans to refuse masking and social distancing. And they have led to controversies over things like the week-long Sturgis, South Dakota motorcycle rally in early August, where 500,000 people clustered together without masks and with no social distancing. A new study by 4 economists at Germany's IZA Institute of Labor Economics estimates that the Sturgis rally may have generated over 250,000 cases of COVID-19. The Republican governor of South Dakota says that the study is dead wrong. Meanwhile, parents in North Carolina who don't believe the COVID pandemic is real are suing the state to open its schools. It's a great way to turn kids into virus carriers. It's a great way to spread the virus to parents and grandparents. It's a great way to spread the coronavirus to adults the virus can kill. What's more, people by the millions are refusing to wear masks on the theory that mask wearing and lockdowns are plots with which the communists in the Democratic Party are trying to train us to be slaves in the dictatorship of a new world order. Supposedly, these evil Democrats have convinced us to jail ourselves in our own homes. In an online video called Voiceless Victims of the COVID Lockdowns, distributed by a source called Hidden Knowledge, author Hannah Maria, quote, makes an impassioned statement about the sanitary dictatorship that is strangling the world, close quote. Yes, she said we are under a sanitary dictatorship. No wonder that when some of the residents of Palm Beach County, Florida, went to a county commissioner's hearing in late June to oppose a mandatory mask rule, one of the mask opposers, Christina Gomez, was steeped in the way of thinking of the conspiracy theorists. She said about social distancing, 6 feet is military protocol. You are trying to get people to train them. So when the cameras, the 5G comes out, what? They are going to scan everybody? We've got to get scanned? We've got to get temperatured? Are you insane? Then she asked why Bill Gates is not in jail. Are the COVID deniers and the conspiracy theorists right? Is the coronavirus pandemic an artificial crisis? Is it a hoax? So far, according to the public health experts, over 970,000 people have died of COVID worldwide. That figure will soon reach 1 million. And the death rates in America are likely to climb far higher when the autumn weather and the common flu season arrive. So who is right? The COVID deniers and the conspiracy theorists, or the public health officials? If the public health officials are correct, and if the conspiracy buffs continue to refuse masking and social distancing, many of us may find out the hard way by sickening and dying. Or, as Kristen Urquiza, whose father died this summer in Arizona, put it, my dad was a healthy 65-year-old. His only pre-existing condition was trusting Donald Trump. And for that, he paid with his life. This is Howard the Humongous, speaking to you from the future. It's your job and my job to make. Or, want to know why? Ask how. And now for that sleazy, sleamy, little, sneaky, sneezy off button.